All right, today we're going to do the second part of 3.3, where we're now going to use direct variation. Our essential question asks, how can I solve a problem using direct variation? Okay, so as a reminder of things that we've seen already, direct variation is the connection or situation between two quantities that are increasing or decreasing at the same rate, and the information must be proportional. Okay, so direct variation is the same thing as m, which we know is the same thing as slope, which we know is the same thing as constant rate of change, which we know is the same thing as rise over run, which we know is the same thing as change in y, change in y over change in x. All of these things work as long as the situation for direct variation is proportional. Okay? As a reminder to see if information is proportional, I'll give you a little XY table here. We'll squeeze it in. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12. So in this situation, I see that we have a constant rate going up by 4 on my y, going up by 1 on my x, so it's 4 over 1. And then when I divide, I get 4 every single time. So this one is proportional. If I give you this information, another little XY table here, let's go 5, 6, 7, 18, 22, 26. Okay, that's a 22. The ink got kind of stuck there. But on the y's, we're going up by 4. The x's, we're going up by 1. So it's still 4 over 1. However, when I divide these numbers, I don't get the exact same decimal. So it does not work. Okay? It is important and imperative to understand that it is proportional. All right? We talked about the idea and the formula of y equals mx. That's going to work today. And we have to understand that m is going to be y over x. Because it's proportional, I can just put the y over x, and that's always going to work. And that'll give me my m or my slope. Okay? If it's not proportional, that idea is not going to work. I have to work with the change in y or the change in x. But for this one, I can just plug in a y and plug in an x, and that will give me my slope. Okay? So we're going to have 4 different steps today to our notes. A, B, C, D. So it gives all those steps written down here. And we're going to start with an example. Our first example is going to say, if y equals 8, when x equals 20, let's find y when x equals 10. All right? So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find, so this is step A, find the slope. Obviously that's m. Using our idea of m equals just y over x. Not change in y or not change in y over change in x, just y over x, because this information is proportional, from part 1. Part 1 is this information here. So I'm just going to use the idea of m equals y over x. Y is 8, x is 20. 8 over 20. Now, should I simplify that? Yeah, I should simplify that. That becomes 2/5. Okay, so that is our slope of this information. So that's step B. We're going to plug m into our formula of y equals mx. Okay? So when I do that, I now have y equals 2/5 x. The second part to our question here, part 2, is find y when x is 10. So they're telling me that x is 10. So I'm plugging that into my equation here. So I'm going to say substitute in either x or y into y equal mx from part 2. Okay, just depends on what the problem's asking, okay? For this one, they're telling us that x is 10, so I'm just going to plug in the 10 for that x. And when I do that, I'm now left with y equals 2/5 times 10. So I just need to now solve step D, which is solve the equation. Okay, what's 2/5 times 10? All right, 2 times 10 is 20. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So y equals 4. So we're going to want two answers to our questions. We want our original formula, y equals 2/5 x, and we're going to want our solving. All right, let's look at another one. If y equals negative 12, when x equals negative 9, find y when x equals negative 4. Okay? So we're going to find our slope. Our slope is n. And from up here, it's y over x. Okay? Y is negative 12. X is negative 9. So I can simplify that to 4 over 3. So if I plug it into the formula, it becomes y equals 4 over 3x. Then it says find y when x is negative 4. That's the second part. Okay. I'll take that information. Y equals 4 over 3. X is negative 4, so I'm going to multiply that by negative 4. And when I do that, I'm left with y equals negative 16 over 3. Not the nicest number in the world, but an answer nonetheless. All right, let's do one more example, see if we can squeeze it in here. If y equals negative 6, when x equals negative 14, find x when y equals negative 4. So they're switching it around a little bit for us, okay? Still going to find my slope first. Y is negative 6, x is negative 14. I'm going to simplify that. Negative divided by negative is a positive, and that becomes 3/7. So y equals 3/7 x. That's one answer. I'm going to take that information. We're going to find x when y is negative 4. So I'm going to plug in negative 4 for y. Negative 4 equals, and then that's going to be 3/7 x. We're trying to find x. They gave us y, so I plugged it in here. Now I'm going to solve the equation. Referring back to what we did earlier this year, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. And when I do that, I'm left with an ugly number, but it is what it is. Negative 28 over 3. So that's using direct variation. Good luck.